Let's skip the introductions, the soft piano music, the usual once upon a time. Instead, picture this. I'm standing in a checkout line at a crowded mall holding a $12 scented candle I don't even like when I hear a small child yell the name I haven't heard in 2 years. Daddy. It's funny how life throws its biggest punches when you're doing the most ordinary things. I was just trying to get out of the house, that's all. After 2 years of crawling through what felt like emotional cement, I had made it to a place where I could walk past baby stores without flinching. I still hated weekends, though. Empty apartments echo louder on Saturdays. So I went to the mall, bought a candle, stood in line behind a couple arguing about oat milk lattes. Boring. Comforting. Then the voice. Daddy. I turned out of instinct. I always do. Even though I'm not a dad. Not anymore. Not really. That's when I saw her. Madison, hair longer, cheeks rounder, holding a squirming toddler with curly hair and eyes so blue they could slice open a memory like a knife. And next to her, Clayton. Yeah, that Clayton. The guy who sold us our couch. The same guy who told me I had good taste while eyeing my wife like a dog outside a butcher's shop. She froze when she saw me. He didn't. Clayton smiled, and Madison. She whispered something to the child and stepped forward like she thought we could just, catch up, laugh. She didn't know what those 2 years had done to me. Let me rewind. Because before the scented candle, before the toddler, before the mall, there was a Thursday. There's always a Thursday. She said she was going out for coffee, wore her red coat, took the keys. She didn't come back. No argument, no fight, no hint. Just a vacuum in the shape of her absence. The next day I found a note folded under my coffee mug. I love you, but I don't love this version of me. I found something real. I'm sorry. No name, no details, but I already knew the couch guy, the expensive-smelling one who called her Mads. She vanished from my life like steam off a mirror. Took half our savings, her favorite mug, and all my future plans. For 2 years, I barely existed. I became the guy co-workers forgot to invite to lunch. The guy who talks to himself in grocery aisles. And now here she was at the mall, holding a child with him. And she had the audacity to say, "Edgar, can we talk?" I stood there, still gripping that stupid candle like it was some kind of anchor holding me to the floor. The mall's fluorescent lights buzzed above me, and I could hear some cheesy holiday music echoing off the walls. It didn't match the moment. Nothing matched the moment, because standing 3 feet in front of me was the woman who ghosted me after 6 years of marriage. The woman who vanished without warning and now had the nerve to ask if we could talk like she was an old classmate bumping into me at a reunion. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Madison hadn't changed that much. Same soft features, same effortless posture that used to make me feel safe. But her eyes weren't the same. They darted like she was trying to measure what version of me she was about to deal with. She must have expected anger, or maybe a scene. What she didn't expect was silence. I didn't say a word. Edgar. She tried again, shifting the child on her hip. Please, I know this is weird, but... Weird. I cut her off. My voice cracked, which somehow made me feel even smaller. You think this is weird? Clayton stepped in, holding out a hand like we were about to negotiate a used car. Man, I know this is unexpected, but we don't want trouble. I laughed out loud. People turned to look. I didn't care. You don't want trouble? I said, stepping forward. You slept with my wife while we were still married. You convinced her to leave in the middle of the day and never come back. And now you're standing here in front of me like we're bumping into each other at Whole Foods. Madison bit her lip. Their child, looked up at me with innocent curiosity, and somehow that hit me harder than anything else. I never meant for it to happen like that, Madison said softly. I didn't know how to end things with you. I felt trapped. And then you took the easy way out, I said, cutting her off again. You left. No conversation, no closure, just a note. You packed up your life and started a new one with him, while I sat in that apartment wondering if you were dead. Her eyes welled up, but I didn't feel sorry for her, not even for a second. I'd spent too many nights crying into a pillow she once held. I'd memorized the sound of her laugh only to forget what my own sounded like. And now she was here offering me what? Closure. She reached into her bag and pulled out a crumpled envelope. I wanted to give you this. I've written everything in it. Everything I should have said back then about why I left, about the baby, about what I was going through. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I didn't take it. Couldn't. Does he know? I asked, nodding toward Clayton. Know what? She whispered. That you sent me messages after the baby was born. I said slowly. That you tried to call me 3 times last winter. That you said you missed the way I used to warm up your car before work. Clayton's eyes narrowed. What the hell is he talking about? And just like that, the cracks in their perfect little molded image started to show. I finally took the candle and placed it gently on the nearest shelf. I didn't need it anymore. I had everything I came for, because for the first time in 2 years, I wasn't the broken one anymore. I don't know what shocked me more, Madison standing there in the middle of the mall with a toddler on her hip, or the look on Clayton's face when I said she'd contacted me after the birth. His expression twisted from smug to confused to something uglier. The kind of expression you make when a secret starts crawling out of the cracks. He turned to her and hissed. What's he talking about? Madison hesitated. Her fingers clutched the envelope like it could shield her from the fallout. She glanced at me, then at him, then back at me again. And for a second, just a flicker, I saw the panic. I didn't think it mattered anymore, she mumbled. It was just closure. Closure, Clayton repeated, stepping back like she'd slapped him. You told me you blocked him. You said you hadn't spoken since the day you left. Now people were watching for real. A mom with a stroller had stopped nearby. A teenager behind the frozen yogurt counter was openly filming with her phone. And me, Edgar, the guy who used to cry silently over cereal at 2 a.m. felt calm, not peaceful, not satisfied, just unshakably numb. I looked Madison dead in the eye. You told me you were confused, that he didn't know about the late-night calls, that you still had dreams about us sitting on that ugly couch watching game shows. And then you sent me a photo. Clayton snapped. What photo? Madison froze. She sent me a picture of the baby. I said, turning toward him, said he smiled like me when he was tired, said sometimes in the right lighting his eyes reminded her of mine. It got so quiet I could hear the buzz from the fluorescent bulbs again. That and Clayton's breathing. I thought it might be mine, I added softly. For a second I even wanted it to be. Clayton turned to her, voice shaking. Is he? You said you were sure. Madison's lips parted like she was about to lie, then closed again. Her eyes dropped to the child who had now clung tightly to her neck. I didn't wait for the answer. I stepped around them like they were furniture, just obstacles in a hallway I'd already walked through once before. But before I could make it to the escalator, she called out, "Edgar, please." I gave you the envelope for a reason. It's not what you think. It never was. I stopped just for a second. You don't get to shape the story anymore, I said without turning around. You had your chance. You burned it for comfort. When I finally walked out of that mall, I didn't feel victorious. There was no cinematic music, no sunset waiting outside, but I didn't feel powerless either. The envelope was still in her hand. She hadn't even tried to chase me with it. Let her explain herself to someone else. I'd lived that chapter. I wasn't going to reread it just because she finally learned how to spell sorry. Still, as I crossed the parking lot, something noted at me. Not about her, not about him, about the kid. Was he really Clayton's? Or was that another truth she buried with everything else? I didn't sleep that night, not even a little. I lay on the couch, that pathetic hand-me-down from my cousin that squeaks every time I shift, and stared at the ceiling fan until it stopped spinning in my eyes. All I could think about was that kid's face. Not Madison's face. Not Clayton's smug grin unraveling in the mall. Just the kid. His eyes, his mouth, the way he tilted his head when I spoke, like something in him recognized me. Or maybe I was just desperate to believe it. The truth is, I didn't want to be a father anymore. I had let go of that idea the moment Madison disappeared with my future in her purse. But standing there, hearing her say that the baby reminded her of me, it ignited something I hadn't felt in 2 years. A spark I thought had died completely. Hope. And God. Hope is the cruelest emotion of all. The next day I called her. I don't know why. Maybe part of me wanted to see if she'd actually answer. She did, after 3 rings. "Edgar." Her voice was cautious, like she expected me to scream at her. "I want a test," I said. No small talk, no jokes, no softness. There was silence, then a shaky breath. I understand," she whispered. "I'll talk to Clayton. We'll figure it out." Took a week, 7 days of gut-wrenching silence and overthinking every moment in that mall. 7 days of imagining 2 futures. One where I was suddenly a father, and another where I had to watch my ex-wife raise another man's child with the man who helped destroy our marriage. She showed up at the clinic with Clayton. He didn't look at me. I didn't look at him. We signed the paperwork, swabbed, waited. No one spoke. The nurse asked if we wanted to stay for results or be called later. I left without answering. 2 more days passed. I stopped eating. I couldn't even keep water down. My boss asked if I was sick. I told him yes, but the illness wasn't physical. He didn't ask further. When the results came, I was in the parking lot of a Home Depot staring at bags of soil in the trunk of a stranger's car like they held the answers. My phone rang. A known number. I answered on the 4th ring. "Mr. Darren," the voice said. "This is Riverside Lab. We've received your results. Do you have a moment?" The words that followed tore me open in a way even Madison hadn't managed to. "There is a 0% probability of paternity." I don't remember hanging up. I just remember sitting on the curb, cars rushing past, the world carrying on like it didn't just erase something I never knew I needed. The child wasn't mine, not even close. The hope I'd quietly fed for a week shriveled inside me, embarrassed to have ever existed. Later that evening, Madison messaged me. Not to apologize, not even to offer sympathy. Just a single line. I never meant to confuse you. I'm sorry if I gave you false hope. False hope, like it was a used coffee cup I picked up off the street. I blocked her number. I deleted every photo, every text, every trace. But one thing I couldn't delete was the image of that kid calling me Daddy. Even if it wasn't true, it sounded too real, too raw. And maybe that was the cruelest part. He didn't know he just said the word that would gut a man completely. 3 weeks passed. I thought it was over. I thought I could finally breathe without that hollow pressure in my chest. The paternity test said everything I needed to know. The kid wasn't mine. End of story, right? But closure isn't clean. It doesn't shake your hand and walk away. It lingers. It scratches at the back of your skull when you least expect it. And sometimes it sends you one more twist when you're already hanging by a thread. I had just started trying to live again. I signed up for a cooking class even though I'm the kind of guy who burns toast while reading the instructions. I made a profile on a dating app, though I deleted it 2 hours later after getting a match with someone who looked suspiciously like my cousin's ex. Still, it was progress. I was doing things, moving forward. Then, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. It wasn't Madison. It was her sister, Kendra. We hadn't spoken since the split. She'd always been the blunt one, opinionated, fierce, the kind of woman who once told Madison not to play house with 2 men like it was a Netflix drama. She never took sides, at least not publicly. But now she was reaching out. Edgar, we need to talk. I think you should know something before it becomes public. My heart dropped. I didn't reply. Not right away. I stared at that message for 2 straight hours. I don't know what scared me more, the fact that she had contacted me at all, or the way she worded it before it becomes public. What did that even mean? I finally responded. Talk about what she called. Not text, not email. A full-on phone call like it was 2006, and what she told me shattered whatever illusion I had left about Madison's so-called new life. She told everyone you were abusive. Kendra said flatly. She didn't give details, just hinted. Claimed she left for her safety. People believed her. Clayton did too. That's how she kept you away. That's why no one reached out. I felt like I'd been punched in the lungs. Abusive. Me. The man who bought her flowers when he couldn't afford to ask. The man who sat through her boring murder documentaries just to hold her hand. I'd spent 2 years hating myself for not being enough. Turns out, she'd rewritten the whole narrative. According to Kendra, Madison spun a story where I was controlling, volatile, even jealous of her success. She made herself the victim in a tale I didn't know I was starring in. And worst of all, Clayton believed it. That's why he looked at me like I was a bomb waiting to go off. That's why Madison had been so calm when she left. She had already built the lifeboat and told everyone I was the iceberg. I thought you knew, Kendra added. That's why I stayed away. I didn't want to get involved in something messy, but then she slipped at dinner last week. She was drunk. She admitted it was all fake, said it was easier that way. Easier. That word again. Like my pain was a convenience problem she solved with a lie. I thanked Kendra, not because I felt better, but because it was one more truth I could at least hold on to. I didn't cry, not this time. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound that bounced around my empty apartment like a ghost. Because now I finally understood. I hadn't just lost Madison. I'd lost my reputation, my dignity, my name. And she'd never even looked back. I never wanted to be that guy. the one who shows up unannounced, standing outside like a shadow from the past. But after Kendra's call, after learning that Madison hadn't just betrayed me, she'd assassinated my character, I couldn't sit on that couch another night pretending I was healing. Healing doesn't happen when your name's been dragged through the mud behind your back for 2 years. It happens when you make it stop. I didn't even plan it. I was driving home from work, took the wrong exit, and ended up in their neighborhood. You'd think I'd avoid it like a trauma site, but some part of me must have known I'd end up there. I pulled up across the street, engines still running, and stared at their front porch. It was stupidly perfect. Little potted plants on either side, one of those cheesy wooden signs that said, "This house runs on love and coffee." I almost turned around. Almost. But then I saw him through the window. Clayton holding the kid. The not my kid. He looked tired, not smug, not victorious, just like any other man trying to keep it together. And suddenly, I wasn't angry at him. Not really. He'd been lied to, just like me. I got out of the car and walked up the driveway. Knocked once, not loud, just enough. He opened the door, and the second he saw me, his body stiffened. "What do you want?" he asked, voice low and flat. "I just want 5 minutes, that's all." He stared at me, jaw tight, but something in him softened. Maybe he'd been wondering too. He stepped aside. Madison wasn't home. That helped. We sat in silence for a few seconds before I spoke. "You know, she told people I was abusive." He blinked. "What?" "That's why no one called. That's why no one asked questions. She painted me as the villain so she could disappear without looking back." He didn't speak, just set the kid down gently with a toy and sat across from me. "She said you were controlling," he finally said. "Said she was scared." "She lied," I said calmly. "She lied to you, and she lied to them, and she lied to me the day she left." Clayton leaned back, eyes scanning the ceiling like he didn't want to believe me, but couldn't ignore the truth anymore. "She contacted me after the baby was born," I continued. "Told me she missed the way I used to warm up her car. She sent me a photo. Told me his eyes looked like mine." "Why are you telling me this now?" he asked. "You already got your answer." "He's not yours." "Because I thought you deserved to know," I said, "the same way I did." The kid was playing with blocks, humming softly to himself, oblivious to the wreckage built around him. Clayton nodded slowly. "She said you'd lost it, that you'd scream at her, break things." I cried. I said, "That's what I did." I cried into a pillow every night for 1.5 years. I lost my job. I lost myself. And the whole time people thought I was some monster, because it made her exit easier. He exhaled sharply, almost a laugh, but not the funny kind. "She's been acting weird lately," he said, jumpy, defensive. Now I know why. I stood up. "I don't want anything from either of you. I'm not here to blow things up. I just wanted the truth to exist in this house." He nodded again, slower this time. I stepped toward the door, but as I reached for it, I heard him say something I didn't expect. "Edgar, I'm sorry." I didn't look back. I just walked out, got in my car, and drove home. For the first time since she left, I felt lighter, not healed, but no longer carrying her lies like they were mine. I should have known it wouldn't end with that conversation. Truth has a way of bleeding out. Once it starts, it doesn't stop until it stains everything. 2 days after I visited their house, just when I started to feel like maybe I could finally move on, there was a knock at my door. Not a text, not a call. A knock. I opened it, and there she was, Madison, standing on my porch with a look I hadn't seen in years. Panic, but also something else. Rage. like she just discovered she wasn't in control anymore. And behind her, a few feet back, was Clayton, arms crossed, jaw clenched, refusing to look at her. I didn't say anything, just leaned against the frame and waited. "You went to my house?" she snapped, stepping forward like she still had a right to invade my space. "No," I said calmly. "I went to Clayton's house. You just happened to live there. Why would you do that? Why would you stir things up now, after everything?" I let out a breath. "Because you dragged my name through the mud for 2 years and pretended I never existed. You lied to him, to your friends, to your family, about me, about us." Her eyes darted toward Clayton, who was staring at the sidewalk like he was trying to disappear into it. "I never gave details," she muttered. "I just implied things. I needed a clean break." "You needed a scapegoat," I shot back. "You didn't want to be the woman who left a decent husband for a guy who sold us a couch." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Clayton finally spoke. "Madison, did you ever love either of us? Or were we just stepping stones to whatever version of yourself you were trying to invent?" That stunned her. For once, she didn't have a prepackaged answer. "You told me Edgar was unstable," he continued. "You told me you left because you were scared. But now I know you left because it was convenient, because it made you feel powerful." "Don't turn this on me," she said quickly, her voice rising. "I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know who I was. You both made me feel trapped. I stepped in then. No, Madison, you felt seen, and it scared the hell out of you." She backed up like I'd slapped her. The silence stretched between the three of us, thick with everything left unsaid. "You ruined me," I said. "But I built myself back without you, quietly, alone. And you don't get to spin this into some story where you were the victim. Not anymore." Madison's face crumbled for a moment. Just a flicker. Then she straightened up and turned to Clayton. "Are you seriously believing all of this?" He looked her in the eye. "I am now." She stormed off the porch without another word. Clayton lingered. "She lied to both of us." I said. He nodded. "Yeah, but I let myself believe it. That's on me." Then he did something I didn't expect. He reached into his coat and handed me a small box. "This was yours," he said. "I found it in the back of her closet. Thought you should have it." I opened it after he left. Inside was the watch I gave Madison for our 5th anniversary. I thought she lost it. Turns out she just buried it with everything else that reminded her of who she used to be. I sat on the couch, the quiet stretching again. But this time it wasn't heavy. Felt like space. Like peace. And for the first time in years, I felt something unexpected. Closure. I kept the box with the watch on my bookshelf. Not because I wanted to remember her, but because it reminded me of the version of myself I used to be. The man who apologized too much, stayed quiet to keep the peace, and confused loyalty with self-sacrifice. That man was gone now, and in his place, someone who finally understood that walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. A few weeks after the confrontation, I started making changes. Real ones. I deleted old photos, not out of spite, but out of acceptance. I unfollowed mutual friends. I stopped replaying every conversation trying to figure out where I failed, because I didn't fail. I loved. I trusted. I showed up. That's not failure. That's strength. Clayton messaged me once more. Just a simple line. "Thanks for telling me." I never replied. We weren't friends. We never would be, but we were two men who had walked through the same fire, and we both came out burned. but no longer blind. As for Madison, I heard she moved out 2 months later. Kendra told me she's living alone now, trying to find herself again. I wish her well, truly, not because I'm some saint, but because I finally understand that some people don't hurt you out of cruelty. They do it out of fear, confusion, or selfishness. They never learn to outgrow. That doesn't make it right, but it makes it easier to let go. The best part, I started laughing again. Real, deep, ugly, loud laughter that fills a room. I met someone new. Slowly, cautiously, without pressure. She knows my past. She doesn't flinch when I talk about it. And maybe, just maybe, I'm learning how to trust again. I'm not healed. Healing isn't a finish line. But I'm not broken anymore.